Hi guys, after a long time I am posting a video here. I've been busy passing my AZ 104 and 305 solution architect exam and decided to share my knowledge through this video really. Today we're gonna be deploying firewall in Azure, route table in Azure, Vnet and Vnet pairing in Azure. The idea is same as on-premises firewall. When any inbound or outbound traffic has to go through your firewall, we're gonna do same structure in Azure. That means we're gonna be creating allow and deny rules. So let's start. It's not that complex as it sounds like. It's very easy. Yeah, so let's start this.
Okay guys, I'm going to show you the plan for today's lab, and then I will draw the draft architect, and then we will do the lab. So what you look on the screen is the plan. Say you are sitting in London with your personal computer, and from your personal computer you connect to these two virtual servers. One is sitting in East US region in Azure and another one is in West US region. They both are running in a virtual machine. The way you connect to this virtual machines is through public IP address. So you do remote desktop into these server, and once you do remote desktop, you will see these server on your screen. Now, Azure strictly says that your virtual machines should be, if they are exposed to a public IP address, then it should really be for testing purpose. Otherwise, use Bastion or VPN. But today we will achieve it through firewall. So what I really mean that if I go back 2 or 3 step, we want to put a firewall, right? We want to put a firewall in between public and your virtual machine. And what we do, after we put the firewall is we will kill the IP address, the public IP address of your virtual machine, and the firewall should only be facing towards public. That is, only the firewall will have the public IP address. So anybody who wants to connect to your virtual machine, right, they have to come to the firewall. In other words, they RDP into the public IP address of firewall. The firewall will detect first where the connection is coming from, and if it's allowed by you in your configuration, then only you can access these virtual machine, or either East US or West US VMs. Okay, so this is the general idea. Any traffic which is coming inside your network, it hits your firewall first. Same thing we are doing in cloud, but that's not enough here because what we will do the next thing, that once you see those virtual machine in your personal computer in London, say this, then you may have to connect to some web services or any websites like Google, which may be running on internet. Any web services, or for example Google, you need internet. That means that now we are talking about going out from your virtual machine. Let me change this. So we are talking about going out from your virtual machine towards internet and access any services or website. Again, so if you come back one step back, before you go out to connect anywhere in internet, the firewall rule will decide if you are allowed to connect those websites. The firewall rule will decide if you can access google.com or bbc.com or, for example, linkedin.com. So what we will do in our lab, we will create all the rules. We will block some sites, we will allow some sites, and we will control the whole environment, whole traffic, the inbound traffic and outbound traffic in our lab. Okay, so if you get this picture in your head, right, then the lab will be very, very easy to do. In order to achieve lab, I'm going to draw a very draft architect. What are we going to do? And that will help you to understand the lab before we start the lab. Okay, so let's go back a few steps here. So when we talk about virtual machine in East US, obviously you know that you have done 104, and in order to create virtual machine, you need to have a resource group. Inside resource group, you create a virtual network, and inside virtual network, so this is virtual network, then you can have multiple subnets. So for this lab, you only need one subnet. We're only going to create one subnet where we placed our virtual machine inside. Okay, we are going to do same thing in West US. So we will create a resource group. Again, we will create a virtual network of Vnet, and inside our virtual network we will create a subnet where our let me do this. Yeah, so inside our virtual network we will create a subnet which will provide an IP address to our VM. Okay, so that is the plan. So let me draw this. Yeah, so that is the plan. Okay, now when it comes to firewall, it's the same structure here really. Your resource group, I will keep the firewall in different resource group. You can always keep your firewall in same resource group in either of the virtual machines, but it's best to keep it separate. So I'm going to create a separate resource group, a separate virtual network, and a subnet. Okay, so let me label this quickly and then I will show you how it looks like. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm gonna label it. Okay guys, so I have now labeled this. Let me show you what I have labeled. So first thing first, I have defined a resource group and I'm going to call it East RG. The VNet, I'm going to call it East VNet, and inside that VNet, the subnet will be called as East subnet. And similarly here as well, when it comes to firewall, we will have a resource group that is FW-RG. We will have the VNet, but when it comes to subnet, I will show you what happens when you create the subnet in firewall. So Azure will give you a default name of firewall subnet. You cannot make a name of it. You have to use what Azure give you the name. We will show in the lab. We will see in the lab when we do the lab. So when it comes to VNet, just looking into here. So we need to define different addresses now, address spacing for our structure here. So you know, it's really up to you what IP address you would want to define. For my lab, I'm going to my VNet, the address space, I'm keeping it in 192.0.0.0/16, and the subnet will be 192.0.1.0/24 west side. Then the VNet would be 172. So it will be in 172 range. So I am going to define it as 172.0.0.0/16. and subnet will be 172.0.1.0/24. Okay, so that is going to be our subnet. Now look into the firewall. So VNet, I would keep it into 10.0 range this time. Okay, so that will be 10.0.0.0/16. The subnet, which I will show you the name later because Azure will give us a name, right? There's a default name, but for the IP address of subnet, let's give this range to the IP address, that is 10.0.1.0/24. Okay, so this is our starting point here. Once we do it, the next thing will be VNet pairing and route table. So before we jump into that advanced, let's just design these things. Let's start from left and right, and then we're gonna come to the middle in here in the firewall side. Okay, if you know how to create this, then you can simply forward the video. If you know how to, you should know how to create the virtual machine anyway. If you're watching this video, this is part of 305 exam. So if you have done 104, you know how to create VMs. Okay, but let me show you from the scratch. From here, let me design this. Okay, so this is my Azure portal. I am going to create that virtual machine in East resource group. While I'm creating this, just to let you know guys, by the end of this video or in the end of this video, I will do the same lab by a full automation by Terraform. But as for now, let's do this. So let me look at these values. So East RG, so I have put in here, so say new resource group East RG. So I'm not going to explain all these to you. You have done it, how to create a virtual machine in AZ104. This is the part of 305. So I'm simply gonna just create, I'm creating a virtual machine, nothing else. There's no rocket science going on here. Okay, so username would be our administrator1, and okay, at this moment I am going to open a RDP port on public IP, but we will kill everything once we deploy our firewall. So let it open, let it keep open from here. So don't click on none. Let's see what next we have to do. Okay, I am going to explain about this networking part because this is what we have put in here on left hand side here. Okay, so again, to remind you, Vnet and a subnet called E subnet, E for East, yeah, and our virtual machine will get IP address from this subnet. Okay, so let's start with that. So that's going to be East Vnet in 192 IP range. So this is the name we have chosen. The IP range is simple, 192, and was it E subnet and 192.0.1.0/24, and that will give us good 256 address. I mean 251 address. 51, yeah, some reserved by Azure. So let's click on OK here, and so networking looking all good. Let's click on next. I'm simply turning off the auto, the update patching and all that. I don't want that to be enabled in this VM. This is just for our lab purpose. Again, I don't want boot diagnostic. This is only for lab purpose. So let's look into this. Click next and review and create. So once this is getting created now, we will do same thing for our this VM, which is going to be in our West US area, West resource group. So let's design this as well at the same time while that VM is deploying. Okay, so let's design this. So let's create a virtual machine in West region. So I have already filled these values. We have just done it for East VM. So our resource group here is West RG VM name, and I have put that same name for administrator as well. Okay, and then let's click on next. Let's click on next again, and when it comes to the networking part, we are on here. So we need 172.0 IP ranges here. So let's design this. And this will be W subnet and 172.0.1.0/24, and let's click OK. Okay, so I'm simply gonna review and create this virtual machine, and so now we will have two virtual machine up and running in the cloud, where we will be connecting by remote desktop. So let me come back here and show it to you. So we have done this, right, and we have done this. So I'm going to open Notepad, and now this is important. You have to open the Notepad here because you need to record all the IP addresses for every resource that you create. So we will create firewall in a minute. So we will have East VM, West VM. We haven't created firewall, but we will have main firewall here. Okay, so let's go back and see if our resources are deployed. So this is getting deployed. While this is getting deployed, I'm simply gonna create this as well. Why not? Yeah, simply gonna create this as well. So let's go to home, create resource, let's type firewall. And we would need firewall instance. Okay, right, firewall is here. Create firewall. Again, just remember FWRG and firewall will be sitting in 10.0 IP ranges. So let me go back. Resource group, I'm going to create new resource group. I want to keep it separate, and that will be FW/RG. The instance name, as I said, main firewall. Where do you want to keep it? I will keep it in East US, but I'm keeping in a separate resource group here. Okay, availability zone now. Right, so if you look into your architect here, the firewall is the only instance that will be exposed to public IP address that will control all the traffic, and then it will allow the incoming traffic to connect to any virtual machine. Okay, that means your firewall becomes the only point of failure. Okay, so do you need availability zone for this? Of course, you would need all availability zone, right? If your firewall goes down, that's it. Nobody can connect to your network. So for testing purpose, I'm keeping it none. But if you are really doing in production environment, let's take everything. Okay. So for testing purpose, just for this lab, I'm gonna keep it none. Now next, let's come to firewall SKU, basic, standard, and premium. Right. All these things, they come with different pricing. Of course, basic come with very basic functionality, and premium come with advanced functionality. We're gonna choose standard at the moment. There are lots of difference between standard and premium. I will tell you the differences later. So for example, if you choose premium, then you can block the access of website by category. For example, gambling, you can simply choose that category and that can be blocked. But in here, you actually have to type the name of the website in order to block it. Yeah, so you get the idea. So premium comes with a more advanced feature. Yeah, and when it comes to costing, let me show you the costing. So just bear with me here. Okay, so this is the pricing calculator for Azure, and if I type firewall here and choose Azure Firewall, and if I click on view, right, so let's say our firewall will be placed in East US, and I am going to choose the standard firewall. 730 hours means 1 month. So if the firewall is keep running for 730 hours, the cost is going to be $912. Yeah, that is just for the firewall. We haven't spoken anything about how much data is flowing. So you need to put an estimate data flow in here. So let's say if you are doing this for a medium sized company, and I will put 5 TB worth of data, 5 TB traffic flowing, and that becomes this. So eventually the costing is this. So I will say the costing can be about $1,000 to $1,200 to spin up this firewall for a medium sized company. Yeah, just be careful with how much data you're gonna put in here. Okay, if you put premium here and make it to 5 TB again, so that's immediately goes up. So that's, I would say $1,500. Okay, so yeah, this is the way you can just see your estimate costing here. So for this lab, I'm gonna keep it standard, and this will be pricing for a whole month. Of course, I wouldn't recommend you to keep your firewall instance on after this lab. It's gonna be rip off for you. So just, after this lab, we all gonna delete all those resources. Okay, so let's go back and let's keep it standard, not premium, standard here. Okay, and then come down here. I am going to keep rules classic. They can be converted into policy at no time, but once you understand the classic, then policy will be piece of cake to understand. It's nothing but different options to click. Same mindset here. Okay, now virtual network. So we will be creating a new Vnet. We will call it as fw-vnet, and this will be in the range of, these are the IP address. And just remember this thing, you cannot edit or change the name of subnet. This is the compulsory. This is by default. A firewall always have this subnet called as Azure Firewall Subnet. So when we do Terraform later, we will use the name in similarly in the way that it is written in capital and small letters. So just remember A and F and S is capital words here. So let me put down here so let me just put down this here. So this is going to be Azure Firewall Subnet. Okay, and your subnet is, this is the IP address of your subnet. Okay, so your virtual machine, not virtual machine, your firewall instance will have IP address from this subnet, right? So let's go ahead, let's do this. Okay, our firewall does need a public IP address because that's the only public IP address we should have in this architect. So the name of this public IP address would be fire IP, I would say. Okay, and if I click on next, and if I click on review and create, just make sure your summary looks like this, and create. Now once this is creating, this is gonna take some time. But if I go back in home, and if I click on my resource groups, so I will have one resource group for West US, another one for East RG. Okay, so West RG and East RG. So in West resource group, you will see your virtual machine, West VM. So West VM, the public IP address is this. So let's copy that public IP address in here. What is the private IP address? Is this one. Okay, your now let's get to your east VM. So this was west, right? If I click on resource group and click on east RG, you should see your east VM here. Your east VM, the public IP address is this, and the private IP address is okay. So we have IP address of west and we have IP address of east. Now the next thing we are going to do is just to test if the RDP connection is working on this machine quickly, and then we will test internet, and then we will kill our public IP address. So you only going to be left with these private IP address. So let's do this. So let me copy for east VM this IP address. And this will be the administrator that I defined while creating the virtual machine. Okay, while this is connecting, let me get the IP address of west VM, and let's connect to our west VM too. Okay guys, so what I would do once this is connected, I'm going to download Google Chrome in both the virtual machine, and then I'm gonna go forward from there. But meanwhile, while I'm downloading Google Chrome on both these virtual machines, I'm pausing the video and I'm gonna resume it once I finish downloading and installing it. I have now installed and downloaded, I have downloaded and installed Google Chrome, and in both the virtual machines, I have made sure the internet is working, so I can simply go and open bbc.com, and in other machine, let's say we want to open linkedin.com. Okay, so the internet is good and working. Let's go back in our architect. So in our last steps in Azure, we have finished, or rather we have left when the deployment of firewall is happening. So now it should have finished by now. So we have a firewall now in Azure. The next thing we need to do is to do a Vnet peering. So if you look into this here, this one is a Vnet from East US. That Vnet we would need to pair towards a Vnet of firewall, which is FW Vnet, and we need to do same thing in the other side as well. What would that mean? That the Vnets, they can see the resources inside each other in that way. Okay, so this is our next bit. Also, we need to get the public IP address of the firewall, and we need to put it here, and then we will kill the public IP address of our virtual machine. So let's start simply with these two steps. Vnet pairing is very simple. It's gonna take no time really. So let's go back to Azure, and let's quickly click on resource group, and there should be FWRG. Okay, so I can see 3 resources here. If I click on FW Vnet, we are going to do Vnet pairing, and in here on the left hand side, right, you see something called pairing. So if I click on pairings and click on add, so from firewall I want to do towards East US, so East Vnet. So firewall to East, that is the name of my pairing link. Okay, the traffic will be allow from firewall to East, and then the remote virtual network, that would be East. So from here it says firewall to East, but this will also create a pairing in East, which will say East to where exactly? East to firewall. And then once you do this, we need to choose the second virtual network, which is East VM. So this is, we are going to do from inside FW Vnet here, and the remote Vnet we have chosen East VM. From there everything will be allow as well. Just click on add. So this is getting created and connected. Wow, that's very quick. Right, let me create the second one for west. So fire to west and west to fire, or firewall if you want to make it firewall. And again, this time the remote virtual network is West Vnet, and just click on add. And once this is created, we will go in other side and just verify that this is working. So let's click on resource group and let's go in East resource group, and there is a VNet there. So this one, East VNet, and inside East VNet there should be a pairing exist already. Here you are. So East to firewall. So that is good. It's all working great here. Okay. So again, let me check in West US just to make sure it's connecting, not just updating. Pairings, and right. This one hasn't appeared yet, so I cannot go forward. Let me go back in my resource group of firewall. Let me choose VNet. Let me click on pairings and let me see. Oh, okay, that's why it hasn't connected yet. It's gonna take a while. You have to have a patience. Oh, now it's connected. So now this will appear in your West resource group. So let's double check it again. It should be coming up here now. Brilliant. So you have done the VNet pairing. Both the VNets are connected so they can see each other. Why do we have to do VNet pairing? Right? Of course, all the traffic, when they flow from one VNet to another VNet, so the VNet needs to see each other, the resources, the IP addresses. You will understand more on this when I type something here. So let's go and grab this. So this is the public IP address of firewall. So let's go and check where is your firewall in here. FWRG. This is your main firewall. The public IP is given here already. And it should be here. Okay, this is a public IP address of your firewall. So let me copy it. Let me put in the notepad. And this is going to be here as well. Okay, so that's your public IP address of your firewall. Okay, and if we go back in Azure and let's see what is the private IP address of our firewall, we are going to need the private IP address of firewall. This is the private IP address of your firewall. So let's keep it here. Okay, so once we have it, public and private IP address, I would recommend that let's get rid of the public IP address of both these virtual machines. Okay, so in order to get rid of both these public IP address of virtual machine, if you go to your resource group, find that name of public IP address. So this is for West VM IP. This is your public IP address. You would need to disassociate that first. Okay, and we will, after it get disassociated, you can simply delete it. You don't need it, right? We will do same thing for East VM. The moment you do this, this is all going to be disconnected. Look, it's already showing me the message here. Yeah, so don't worry, we will connect to that through firewall in a minute. So let's go back, and so let's go back in East RG, and if you pick up the public IP address of East VM IP, let's disassociate it from here. Of course it's gonna fail because it's already trying to do this. Yeah, now you can delete it. It's still doing that old thing here. Okay, we just have to wait. Let me pause the video quickly. Okay, so once this is done, now we can delete it. Let me give a refresh quickly and then it'll be easy. Okay, so what we have done, we have deleted the public IP address. So what I'm going to do in this case now, yes, the next step will be to create a route. And what we need to do, we need to have a route in East US and West US. And the route, or rather through route table, we can link that the VM towards a VM of our firewall, and hence we can link our firewall through route. So let me create a route in this area, link it to firewall, and then I will create a route in this area, link it towards a firewall. The VNet pairing helps for linking. So I will create it and I will explain you what is happening here. Okay, so let's go back into our East US group to create the route. So yeah, so we are in East RG anyway. Let me refresh it. This should have gone by now, but let me refresh it and it will disappear. Yeah, let me click on create and just type route. So you need route table. Click create and route table. Okay, and name will be, you can call it east route, and just click on review and create, and let's create it. So once this is getting creating, I will go back in the resource group and I will do same thing for west resource group. If you have missed the step in the last creation of route, then let's type it here, route. It's very simple. Click on route table, create route table. This time this is going to be based in West US, yes, and let's call it let's route. Keep this no for the while, and let's click on create. Okay, so the deployment is happening for your route, but if I go back into your, so what is happened that we have created the route. So if you look in the west, we just created the route here again. So if I click on here and we are going to make that route go through the firewall towards the internet, but the traffic towards the internet will only be allowed if there's a firewall rule saying allow. Okay, so let me do some configuration there, and then you would know how to design this. So if I click on go to resource, this will take us straight to our newly created resources. West route, the subnet you need to associate is west subnet, obviously. So again, we have now associated our west subnet with this route. The next step is to create a route inside our west route, and when you create the route, this is very important, just watch carefully what I'm doing. So this is, I'm gonna call it west towards fire, right? The destination prefix is what? IP address. Okay, the IP address is our internet, right? And the next hop address is our firewall. You don't see firewall here. Any traffic which goes out has to go through the firewall. Okay, now is the firewall is our virtual network gateway? No. Is it the virtual network? No. The virtual network is SWVnet. Is it internet? No, internet is here. It's not internet. So what is it? It is our virtual appliance. Yeah, it's our virtual resource, is a virtual appliance. What is the IP address of firewall? This is the private IP address of the firewall that we have recorded earlier. Okay, let's click on add. So that is added. That is all looking good. If I go back in home and resource group, this time I'm going to do same thing in east resource group. If you have missed the steps, just watch carefully here. First, you associate the subnet. So in east resource group, the subnet is this one. So the VM gets IP address from this subnet. So let's associate that subnet here. So E subnet, yeah, if you click on OK. And then again, next is click on routes and add, and this is from east to firewall, or you can say east to internet through firewall. Yeah, it's up to you what you want to call it. IP address. This is your virtual appliance. The next hop type would be towards where? Firewall is your virtual appliance, and this is the IP address of firewall. Click add. Okay, so we are getting somewhere. So just look at this before we jump to the final stages of this lab. So what we have done, just let me recall you. We have created a VM, we have created a second virtual machine, we have created a firewall, then we have remote desktop into those VMs just to make sure the internet is working and everything's good, and then we have come back to the firewall and we have done the Vnet pairing, these pairings. after we've done the Vnet pairing, we have created route, associated their relevant subnet. So once we have associated the subnet, what we have told route that any traffic goes out from these VMs, they need to go through the next hop, which is the private IP address of your firewall here, and then they can go to 0.0.0 like google.com, for example. That is internet, but that is design at the moment. But the next stage is now we have killed the IP addresses of our virtual machine. So let's create a rule in firewall now to connect to our virtual machines with the IPs of firewall. Yeah, so that's going to be very exciting. So let's do that as a next thing. So let me go back in Azure portal, resource group, firewall, and let's find where is our main firewall. In here you can see something called classic rule. There are three kind of classic rule given here. The rule we are interested at this point is NAT, network address translation rule. So if you click on add, and okay, so in here the name will be remote desktop connections. Priority I will give it 200, and then you will have, let me just double check. Okay, great. Yeah, okay. So the name is, so the first rule I'm going to create is for East virtual machine. So East VM, TCP protocol, IP address, source. So source. So if I look into this one, and if I want to connect to East virtual machine from firewall, okay, the source now become my home IP address. So the source is from my laptop from London. So what I really need to do that, go and find my IP address, the public IP address. You can go on Google and just type what's my IP address, and it will give you your public IP address. This IP address, you can simply go in here and you can type in the source here. Just put your public IP address. But for this lab, I'm not going to reveal my public IP address on a YouTube video. So I'm gonna keep it sources like all from any IP address. But in theory, you can test it with your home IP address. Where is the destination? The destination address is your firewall. So the firewall, again, it is 4.246 address. Okay, so let me take that address of firewall from here, copy and paste in here. This is the destination. The destination port is 8080, and the translation will be 8080. Okay, no, the destination port will be 3389. You see RDP works on 3389. Yeah, and the translation will be 3389. But translation of firewall onto this port to where we are going to create this rule for East VM. So let's get the East VM. We have already destroyed the public IP address. We are only left with the private IP address. So the private IP address is this. Okay, so now you can read East VM, protocol is TCP IP, source is from anywhere, ideally from home. Destination is your firewall. That's the only public IP facing appliance in your architect at the moment. The destination port, and that will translate into East VM to its port 3389. Okay, let's do this with West VM as well. So West VM, TCP IP, source is this. We want remote desktop connection which works on that. So we want any traffic to be translated on that coming to West VM. So West VM is, so again, there is no public IP for West VM. We have left with now private IP only. Here you are. And then again, firewall, but this time not 3389. This time it will be 4080. Let's say 4080. So if somebody try to hit firewall on that port, it will get translated into an RDP port, which is 3389 and of West VM. Yeah. So just try to read it and understand. This is what network address translation does. Okay, right. So once this is done, we can click on add. But if you see the add is grayed on the bottom left, that means we have made a mistake somewhere. It's good to make mistakes, so we know how to fix it. So if we go up and down, if you look at the green ticks, I can see in here there is no green tick right in the end. That means something is wrong here. So let me see, probably, oh, there's one extra space. Yeah, okay, and this button has come live. Let me click on add. Okay, so now we see those rules have appeared here. It is still getting created if you look on the top, but I can see the rules here. So let me simply try it. Let me first thing first, East VM is on. So let's look at the rule. So 3389 for East VM and West is 4080. So let me do that. East VM is, so firewall, if I do 3389, that is East VM, and again this is your 4080 West VM. Okay, so let's connect towards our East VM. So if you look into that here, I'm simply gonna, if I do this, that will be easier for you to understand. Similarly, if I do this, then it will be easier for you to understand what is happening. And so I'm gonna hit the firewall now from my computer. Okay, and I'm gonna hit the firewall in this port, and once I've done it, then I will hit it in 4080 port. Okay, so let me hit that on that port. Remember, it is still deploying, so it may not happen that quickly, but it will happen. So let me close the previous session, RDP, otherwise it will just create some confusion. Okay, just look at it. So what I'm doing, I'm going to hit it here. Good, it's asking for the username and password. That means it is all working okay. Okay, so that is connected. So this is our East VM. Let it connect, and then the next thing is I'm going to hit the firewall on this port. Remember, you can hit it because you have defined asterisk sign in source, but you can simply lock it down to your home public IP address. So you will only connect it if you're sitting in your home in London or office, or you can, simply, yeah, do all those things. Okay, so this is the first thing done. Yeah, but as you can see, bbc.com and linkedin.com is still running from the last session, but we have created a route table, and we have tell the route table that, hey, this is the this is going through the firewall. So that means firewall is allowing accessing linkedin.com or bbc.com. No, by default, firewall blocks everything. So if I now just press enter, it should block me to go to BBC. This is open from last session. Okay, here you are, and same thing. I should rather get a warning, but it doesn't matter. It's you can't connect. Okay, so LinkedIn you can't connect, and bbc.com you can't connect. So what I will do, that the next thing I will show you how to whitelist the website on firewall. So let's whitelist bbc.com. Yeah, so if I go back in the firewall, just watch what I'm doing now. This time I'm going to create an application rule. So in here, I'm simply gonna call it whitelist sites. Okay, and the priority I'm going to give is 201, and is it allow or deny? I'm just keeping it allow, and just come down here, and I'm gonna say be a whitelist BBC, or actually let's say whitelist news. Yeah, and then IP and source IP is source IP. You can put the IP address of your virtual machines where the traffic is going out. The traffic is going out from these two VMs where at the moment is blocking it. These are the IP addresses of your VM. But if I put a star sign, it covers all your VM. So for source IP, I'm going to put a star or asterisk sign. Just watch what I'm doing. This is your protocol and where we are targeting. So we want to target some news channels. So I'm just going to put asterisk.bbc.com, asterisk.bbc.co.uk, and let me just do it for CNN as well. So asterisk.cnn.com. Okay, so you can simply keep adding all the news websites here. right? I am not going to whitelist LinkedIn from here. I will show you a magic formula to whitelist other website. Just bear with me. So if I click on add, and it's just updating the rule. So when the rules getting updated, it's fairly quickly, the rules gets created fairly quickly. So if I go back on this website now, bbc.com, which was not opening last time, let me press enter. So remember, the rule is getting added, but it's quicker. It's not that delayed. So let me keep refreshing it, and let me yeah, okay, I can see the rule here now. So hopefully it will sync to our virtual machine, both the VM, very soon. Yeah, there you are. So we can now connect back to our bbc.com. So the rule is working. Now let me show you the next step of whitelist, which is very exciting, right? So what I have is, I have a script which does it for you. So let me go back to the portal, and let me open the Cloud Shell. Okay, so this is the coding for whitelisting more websites. You can simply come in here and just keep adding the website on this column. And you know, if you want to add n numbers of websites, just do it here, and it will just create one rule and whitelist everything that you want. So for this demonstration, I'm simply gonna whitelist YouTube and LinkedIn. Before we do it, let me just make sure YouTube is not opening, just for the sake of your conversation, your confirmation. So let me just type YouTube. Okay, so now LinkedIn is not opening and YouTube is not opening. Let's go back in our Cloud Shell. Okay, so before we run the script, so what we need to do, we need to change it to PowerShell, and then we will run the script. Let me show you the script again. I have changed few things in the script, so I want to explain that. First thing first, in here, this is the name will appear in Azure, that the name of the rule, and so the name will appear, and make sure the priority is not clashing with any other priority. So if you have defined 200 priority to whitelist bbc.com just now, then make sure this is not same as 200, just keep it different. Okay, so the priority needs to be different here. In here, the resource group name is not hub.rg. The resource group name of our firewall is, let's find it out quickly. This is fw.rg. So fw-rg. Okay, so all is looking good. Let's run this and just watch, guys, what's gonna happen. Okay, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger so we can all see it better. Okay, so get firewall is as it's saying that fw.rg was not found as a resource group. Okay, that is interesting. Let me find out. So get firewall name. Okay, the name of the firewall is wrong here. Okay, so the resource group is okay. The name of the firewall is this is our name of the firewall. No, this, yes, that's, yeah, and then with classic rule. Okay, so just bear with me while I change it, and I am going to run that again. Okay, and right, so again, this should be okay. So this is the first command I'm running, which did not go right, and then I need to run this because remember this didn't go right. So now this, I have fed the value in here. So let me, yeah, this should be okay. Yeah, so what we have done in essence, that we have created a rule, more websites. We are whitelisting these two things with the priority. What is the value of the priority? Yeah, here 203. That's all, really. That's all. It's no rocket science here. So once we do this, we need to run the final command to implement this rule. So this is the final command. So if you watch what is happening, and this will simply, you know, deploy this rule, and it's going to be very quick. So when I refresh things here, it should be coming underneath here. But we just have to wait until this finish the deployment. So just wait. Okay, so I can see that the rule has been created above. It's still showing in here that is still deploying, because this on the bottom, this should have gone to the next command line, So if I press enter, no, it's not allowing me to do anything, but I can see the rule has been deployed anyway. So here you are. Yeah, so what we do at this point, we can just go and we can try. Oh, the YouTube is working already because the rule has been deployed. Let me see what is happening here. And the LinkedIn is working. So that is because of this. Okay, so in the essence, this is where your lab finishes. So I'm gonna quickly recap the lab before we jump into Terraform and automation. Now you don't have to do Terraform after this. This is your lab's done. You don't have to watch the further video. I'm not after views or royalty from YouTube. This is not a paid channel. It's just an open free channel. Okay, I'll do it for fun. So right, so in the essence, what we have done, that's step number one. We have created a virtual machine, and while creating the virtual machine, these were the values we defined. We have created another virtual machine in another region. This time it was in West US region. We have defined the values like Vnet and all that, but while defining the values, we have kept the IP address in a different range. So if this is in 192, this is in 172 range, purely because when we do Vnet pairing in the next stages, there will be no clashes of IP address. Once we have created that, then we have created a firewall in a different IP ranges. The subnet in firewall is defined by Azure, which we couldn't edit. Once we have done this, then we have killed the public IP address of both virtual machine. And then once we kill the public IP address, well, before that we did RDP into them and install Google Chrome and all that. But we have killed the public IP address, and then we have created Vnet pairing from firewall towards both Vnet. So all the Vnets can see, the firewall Vnet can see East Vnet and firewall Vnet can see West Vnet. Yeah, at no stage we have done any pairing between East Vnet and West Vnet. It is not needed. Okay, once we've done the Vnet pairing, then we have created a route. So the route can be associated with the subnet. Sorry, this is the subnet rather. This is the subnet. This subnets provide virtual IP address to this VM, and then any traffic which goes out from the VM, the next hop address was our firewall, and then it will be internet. But before that, what we have done, we have created some rules. The rules were, if I click on classic rules, the rules were this rule for remote desktop, because we have destroyed the public IP address of virtual machines, and we have created the rule that is network address translation. So anything which hits firewall on this port or this port translate into the private IP addresses of virtual machine into the remote desktop port. And finally, we have whitelisted some website by going into portal and then by running script. The next bit is that I'm going to destroy all these resources, and I'm going to open Terraform, and I'm simply going to apply one command and do the whole lab just by one command without clicking anywhere. Just one command. Are we ready for this? Terraform is very, very easy. A kid has been asked about coding, guys, and he said it's very easy. So it's very easy. I show you how easy it is. Let's jump onto Terraform now.
No. No.
Okay guys, my script is ready here. The Terraform is ready, but let me show you first that I don't have any resources in my Azure account. So I'm just logging in there quickly, and then we will run that thing from VS Code. Okay, so if I click on resource group, I think what else is left? Okay, let me clear all this quickly and then I come back here. So let me rather pause the video and I clean it all up first. Okay, so I have now deleted all those resource group where my old resources was running, especially firewall that I created earlier in this video. Now I'm going back to the Terraform. This is in Visual Studio Code. This is my coding really. I've done same thing what I have designed there. So as per this, there's going to be a resource group created called firewall-rg. And then if I scroll down a little bit more, and then another resource group will be East VMRG. and there's going to be the third resource group for the west one, so west VM RG. Okay, so I'm going to do same thing really what we've done in the lab. That means the Vnet pairing and yeah, those creating the route and everything. So network pairing is happening here. Yeah, creating the routes is happening here. So let's do this. So let me. Oh, okay, I'm in the wrong folder, so hence it's not going through. Let me just quickly. Yeah, now it will go. The file is in. If you look at this file, is in a different folder called firewall, and I was in the wrong folder. So let me do this again. Yeah, it's working now. Sorry guys, I was in the wrong folder. Okay, so the first command I'm just running Terraform initialize, and then simply I'm gonna apply all the configuration. So Terraform apply, and this is gonna tell me what this code will create, and I have to just type yes to commit everything, and then it will just deploy everything. Yeah.
Since you couldn't get $1 out of me. 자, 오늘 밤이야. 난 독을 품고 네 혼을 뺏은 다음 Look what you made us do. 천천히 널 잠재울 fire. 잔인할만큼 아름다워. I bring the pain like this, that pink venom, this, that pink venom, this, that pink venom. Get 'em, get 'em, get 'em. Straight to your I don't mind it, I'm riding, flying private side by side with a pilot. Up in the sky and I'm wild and styling on him, and there's no chance, cause we got bodies on bodies like this is no dance. 자, 오늘 밤이야. 난 독을 품고 네 혼을 뺏은 다음 Look what you made us do. 천천히 널 잠재울 fire. 잔인할 만큼 bring the pain like this, that pink venom, this, that pink venom, this, that pink venom. Get 'em, get 'em, get 'em. Straight to your dump like whoa, whoa, whoa. Straight to your dump like Taste that pink venom, taste that pink venom, taste that pink venom. Get 'em, get 'em, get 'em. Straight to your dump like whoa, whoa, whoa. Straight to your dump like 원한다면 provoke us. 감당 못해 and you know this. 이미 퍼져버린 shot that potion. Come and give me all the smoke, don't leave me more like I'm so rock and roll. Come and give me all the smoke, that's yourself, but just stop, drop. I bring the pain like ra-ta-ta-ta, ra-ta-ta-ta, ra-ta-ta-ta.